Well, hello, Morenci. My name is Mr. Hilbert, and today we're going to be building a camera boom or a camera crane for my tripod. I'm not quite sure what it's going to be called. At any rate, the issue is that I'm currently using the school's DocuCam for the sketch videos I've been posting. Works great in real life when I've got students live with me, but when I'm posting video online, it's a real pain in the neck to do the editing on it. Because the DocuCam, for some strange reason, wants to speed up and slow down the video as you're editing it. It also has a strange tendency to let the audio just keep plowing on. So, to solve this problem, I'm going to use this camera to do the sketch videos from now on. The big issue, though, is that I can't quite do the drawing bit while holding the camera. That just isn't going to work. And I can't get the tripod in the situation because, well, now I've got all my desk in frame and that doesn't quite look good. And it's also directly in the way of my chair. So what I'm going to do is set the camera off, or set the tripod off to the side. So like this, and build a boom, or again a camera crane, by taking a couple pieces of scrap Baltic birch, which is really nice plywood really, and hanging it off the tripod. We'll make everything so it can be attached using the 1/4 bolt that's sitting in the center of that tripod, and we're going to hang the camera off the end. And down on this end, there will probably be some sort of counterweight just to make it so that the tripod doesn't have to fight all of the torques involved. So let's see what happens, and this should be an interesting experiment. So to begin this project, I needed to cut down the pieces of plywood to about 4 feet. I went with 4 feet because I figured 3 feet would be a little too short to be able to hold the camera where I needed it to be, and the full 5 feet that the plywood was originally in was too excessive for the torques involved. I knew that I would have to fight the strength of the tripod, and it's not particularly strong, so I wanted something that wasn't going to force it around too much. One of the things you'll see me do frequently during my builds is use a knife to do my marking for measurements. I like to use the knife because it gives you the most accurate mark possible. With the 4-foot sections of being cut, I need to finish off by cutting out the little end caps that would be glued to them. To do this, I cut one, measured and cut one, and then used it to create a stop block for the rest of the cuts. I ended up cutting out 6 of them, and I think I only used 2. But I wanted to have the extras in case I needed something to help increase the strength along the beam somehow. When cutting small parts like this, I find it's best to make the cut and then let the blade come to a full and complete stop. The small part will tend to jump out or get damaged if you try and raise the blade while it's still spinning. This can damage the part, but more importantly, it can send the part flying up into your face and cause you injury. So, in this case, use the stop block, but be intelligent about it. When using a belt sander like this, it's important to hold the work lightly, especially when you're doing something freehand. This way, if the work falls out of your hand or gets caught on the belt somehow, it can just fall freely and it doesn't get sent flying into your face or try and drag your hand down the belt. And if you see right here, that's what happens if you let it go. Once all the parts have been cut out, it's time to go ahead and start assembling everything. Now, for this project, I wanted the beam to be able to carry a 1/4 inch bolt and allow it to slide freely up and down the length of the beam. Now, in order to do this, I needed first for the inside dimension of the beam to be a 1/4 inch. And I need that space to be slightly larger than a 1/4 inch to allow that bolt to move back and forth without dragging and being a real bear to move around. To do this, I used a 1/4 inch piece of wood wrapped in a piece of paper that had been folded up a couple of different times. This made sure that I had the 1/4 inch measurement that I needed, plus a little tiny bit of wiggle room. It worked out really well. Now, while using the paper as a spacer turned out to be a really good idea, my idea of gluing everything together with a combination of wood glue and CA glue, while technically sound, didn't work out quite as well as I'd hoped. And if I were going to build this again, I would probably skip the CA glue and go with either hot glue or brad nails. I have been trying different quick glues like hot glue or CA glue, mostly just experiment and see what worked best in terms of being able to assemble a product very rapidly. And yes, brad nails would work great, but they require additional tools to be set up, and occasionally I just don't want to pull that type of thing out. So if I can use a glue, a fast-acting glue, to hold everything together while the wood glue takes over, that's my ideal situation. So once the glue had dried, I needed to go ahead and clean up my edges. The belt sander, while a little aggressive, is actually a really good tool for this type of job because it allows me to hit large sections of wood evenly. So with the beam cleaned up, it was time to go ahead and add the tripod mount. Now once again, I'm attempting to use the CA and wood glue trick, which I pulled from a different video. This time, however, I decided to spray a little bit of accelerator into the joint after I started putting everything together. And this seemed to help accelerate the CA and hold everything in place a lot better. Originally for this project, I had planned on using a nut epoxied into the tripod mount. Unfortunately, when I actually went ahead and tried it after the epoxy had dried, what I found out is that the epoxy really doesn't have quite the holding power, or at least the plywood didn't have quite the holding power I needed it to have, even after having let it set for a full 24 hours. So instead what I did is use the furniture hardware from the Barstool build to go ahead and create a mount that actually would screw into the tripod really easily. I should have started with this from the beginning. I just didn't remember that hardware existing at the time. So one of the better ideas I had for this project was to add a couple of these ACE yardsticks to the side of the beam. And what this is going to allow me to do is to position the camera and the counterweight that goes with it at equal spaces or equal distances away from the center point of the tripod. One of the great things about doing this is that the yardsticks come with their own measurements marked. So at this point, I was still using the CA glue and wood glue combination when it came to gluing things down. However, instead of just putting the CA glue down and hoping that it was going to hold everything in place, I started to apply the kicker or the accelerator to the wood that I was going to be gluing the part to. And really the accelerator is just water. You just sort of spritz it on there and then place the part that you're gluing to it down. And the CA glue reacts with the water and forms a bond super quick. And even after that, I went ahead and threw some clamps on just for good measure. So while doing the research for this video, I went ahead and actually found out what those furniture hardware bolts that I've been going on about for the last two videos were actually called. It turns out what I've been using is something called an E-insert nut, or a Type E insert nut. They come in all sorts of different sizes, and basically they're a big wood screw on the outside and a threaded nut on the inside, and they work great for this type of project. Take a look at them. They're at Ace or Home Depot. Now, when you're doing something like this, it's really important to make sure that before you glue everything down, you know which side is going to be up. So in a second here, you're going to see me duck around and take a real good close look to make sure that not only do I know which side is up, but that the numbers are starting in the same location. Because I want to be able to read this thing super quick, super easy. So it's really important that you check these things before you put the glue on. All right, so the camera boom project is done. Currently, I've got the camera hung up over the sketch pad like would actually be used, and it's counterweighted with these earmuffs and ear protectors. I needed something sort of about the same weight as the camera in order to be able to counterbalance it properly. And the tripod really isn't strong enough, at least the mount isn't really strong enough to be able to handle the torques provided by having that little camera on a 2-foot pole. So when you're building this, you definitely need to weigh your camera and figure out how much of a counterweight you need in order to be able to balance it out. Now, one of the things I did is I added these, let's see if you can see them there, these Ace yardsticks to the build, so that I know if I position my camera over here at, say, 1 inch, then on the other side of this, let's swing around that way a bit. If I hang my counterweight over here at 1 inch, then everything should balance out properly. And so this is one of the slick features I've come up with. Of course, about the time I glued the yardsticks on, I came up with a completely and totally different way of designing this and building it that allowed me to move the boom to the left or right to extend it even further out. And I might in fact have to make that later. But for now, the camera boom is done and it seems to be working okay. Hopefully I'll have a sketch out using the camera boom in the near future for you guys to take a look at. This is Mr. Hilbert. I hope you're having a great night. Please go ahead and let's see if I can figure this out. Like and subscribe over here and watch other videos over here. Have a great night.